Hello and welcome to Lemire Reviews, where we bring you the stories you may not yet have heard of. My name is Rossamy, and today we are bringing you Once and Future Part 7. A tale of myth, magic, and mystery. A family at each other's throats. Lifelong deceptions and betrayals. Can Duncan and his grandmother Brigitte fight back the Fae world? Join us now as we dive in and review the new chapter in our series and find out. And here we have a change up from what our normal cover art has been for the past 6 series. Instead of a singular character and a reflection on a blade surface, we are treated to the two characters, Duncan and Brigitte, also known as Gran, striking heroic poses, a sword drawn, and smoke filling the air. It's important to know that this comic was made by Kieran Gillen, Dan Moore, and Tamra Bonavillin, and distributed by Boom Studios. The comic was released on March 20th, 2020. Our first panel opens on Arthur's castle. Set in the other world, the story having settled and formed back after its devastation. The undead king has received a message that one of his greatest rivals is about to rise again, and that one of his many knights in assembly must take up a new quest. Galahad, being the bootlicker he is, steps forward and lets everyone know he is worthy and that he is the perfect knight for this task. Arthur considers the man and his knightly standing. So Arthur presents his human knight, the Siege Perilous, a seat that only accepts the most worthy knight without killing them. Galahad gives a brief hesitation as the king watches his approach to the seat with no discernible look on his face. And at first it seems all is well, until the knight gives out a shriek of pain. As the knight's skin burns, blisters, and smokes, he begs for it to stop. Arthur turns his back on him as the knight's body mutates, skin falling off or burning. Arthur giving him a simple acknowledgement that this will turn him into the greatest knight, if he can survive it. We join Duncan in the deep forest of Cornwall, standing over some mystical being we find out later is a pixie. Gran called from Avon, Duncan looking shell-shocked, saying he took out the pixie, but that he can't ever look at a toadstool the same way again. After Gran asks how the mission went, she called him, hoping that he would come visit her soon. It seems that Duncan has been keeping his distance since finding out about the truth of his family, hanging up on Gran when he receives a call from Rose, which of course leaves Gran sad and distraught. Rose is calling to find out Duncan's report on his current mission, asking on how his standing with Gran is, which leads to us finding out he will talk to her to stay alive, but doesn't trust her. Changing the subject, he wants to know if they are finished for the night, but she tells him he needs to get to London, throwing needles onto a map, the practice of which is called occultomancy. Also, all the pins land in one place, where a huge otherworld crossing will happen, and that the location suggests a caper is afoot. Then Rose receives a call from Gran, and she demands to know what Duncan has now gotten himself into. Even Rose is worried for his safety. The heist is at the British Museum, in the dead of night, as Duncan walks the halls, with only a flashlight to guide his way, well aware that he may have to fight whatever it is there to the death. He takes a small pendant out of his pocket, looking at it quizzically, until the pendant comes alive and begins to guide him first through the halls, then up some stairs to the next floor, to a stand of relics kept behind glass, finally stopping at a helmet and shield of ancient origin. Our hero marvels at the relic piece. Then there is green haze and hooves, followed by a voice questioning Duncan's worthiness. It's the now disfigured and corrupted Galahad. Galahad mocks Duncan, but all Duncan can do is stare at his now horribly disfigured brother, and question what the man has been turned into, for it is a monstrous sight, as if his whole body was burned, and his armor became fused to him. This is when Galahad freaks out and attacks Duncan, swinging his massive morning star at him. Duncan dodges out of the way, the weapon shattering the glass case behind him. Duncan rolls out of the way, drawing a gun and opening fire on Galahad. But Galahad was already on the move, and the bullets only hit air. At the British Library, a shelf holds a line of old books. A hooded figure walks up and shatters the glass only stealing one of the books inside before walking away. The fight between Duncan and Galahad rages on, a third person showing up to the scene, setting up some type of device. Galahad gets the upper hand on Duncan and is about to bring the mace down on his brother, when the newcomer interrupts, who turns out to be Gran, come to the rescue, causing a distraction so Duncan can get free and run away. She then mocks Galahad for being so easily distracted. In his rage, Galahad gets back on his horse and charges at Brigitte, who just stands there unflinching. In Galahad's haste to charge, he doesn't see the razor wire that cuts him and his horse in half, both falling and skidding to the ground. Gran looks down on her grandson, who shrieks about what type of monster could do such a thing. She just points a gun down at Galahad and introduces herself as his grandmother. So Galahad runs back to the Fey world. Duncan reappears, asking why she showed up. She lets him know that she's just being there just in time to pull him out of the fire, having used an old trick of silver razor wire threads to take out the knight, only to now be told Galahad was just a distraction for the real heist. Brigitte finding it a clever but annoying move. On a mound burial site called Sutton Hoo, in Woodridge, Suffolk, England, Mary stands at the top, invoking a ritual in an ancient language, under a full moon and a candle surrounding the base, when a hole filled with fire opens on the mound, and an arm rises out of the flames, heralding the return of a new being. A man bathed in flames stands before her, clad in chainmail and leather armor, his name being that of an ancient hero called Beowulf. And that wraps up part 7. We now have a monster-fied Galahad, a new villain in the form of Beowulf. In the stories, they're using a lot of real-world locations to set up magical stories of fae and portals to other worlds. The transition between the two and the reasoning behind it mesh well with where the story is going. It's an interesting turn to make this whole problem a symptom of a fan. And then let's get into the lore they have put in place for this issue. Let's start with pixies, a creation of the people of Devon and Cornwall, England. Characterized as mischievous small creatures in folklore, they like playing pranks, but will assist with tasks if treated well, often believed to be found in burrows or circles made of stones. They are also linked with nature, such as ferns, hedges, and also known as piskies. Then we have the second piece of lore they added, the Siege Perilous. A dangerous seat in translation was a chair enchanted by Merlin, so that none could take up the seat without dying. It is another story where the person sitting in it is either Percival or Galahad, depending on the telling. The one to sit in the seat is the one who will find the Holy Grail. Then we have the third bit of lore, Beowulf, a hero coming from a really old English epic poem that blends Germanic and Scandinavian myth. It is actually the oldest surviving epic poem in Old English. Beowulf is a man who travels to Denmark to help get rid of a creature known as Grendel, only to end up fighting Grendel's mother, who is unnamed, and a dragon. While doing all this, he also becomes the king during this time. So far, the theme of family versus family is an intriguing premise, where I, for one, think that if you don't look at a medieval Skeletor and maybe recognize you chose the wrong side, maybe you're more of the problem. How do you not stop and point and wonder, am I on the wrong side? And Galahad ends up paying for that whole thing by getting himself cut in half. Plus, the grandmother seems a little too ready to shoot pretty much any family member that gets in her way. I don't know, screams dysfunctional family. But they did make Beowulf look pretty cool. Guy comes out on fire from a hole in the ground, just reeking. Then you got Beowulf bursting out of a fiery hole in the ground, on fire himself, ripped and ready to fight anyone in front of him. All in all, I think the story so far is really good, like to what it's leading up to, like the lore they're throwing in, how they depict the characters. In fact, one king looks like a complete zombie, the other guy looks like a mythological hero. Loving every bit of it, and can't wait to see what they do next. What do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe. and tune in next time for more.